So I wanted to thank Barbara Kessler for coming in and for all the information that's going to be shared. And if you enjoy it, please let her and let us know, and tell your friends to watch Dunstone TV.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. As Kathleen said, my name is Barbara Kessler. Welcome. I work for the Community Engagement Division of the Attorney General's Office, and we're here to talk about how to be a savvy, or even more savvy, it sounds like some of you already are quite so, senior, and to learn how to avoid financial exploitation. I am based out of the Worcester Regional Office. And some of you may not have been aware that there's one based in Worcester. It covers the whole Central Mass region. And this is our Attorney General, who is Andrea Joy Campbell. She was elected to a 4-year term, started in 2023 to serve that out. And as it says here, the Attorney General's office is an advocate and a resource for all of residents of Massachusetts, regardless of status, regardless of where you're located. The work of the office is varied. There's more than 600 employees, only maybe a little more than half of those are attorneys, so I'm not an attorney. We do other kinds of work within that space to protect consumers, combat fraud and corruption, investigate and prosecute crime, protect the environment, protect workers, and protect your civil rights. The office's work is involved, and it starts in these different arenas, right? So 4 major arenas. Investigation. Oftentimes a simple complaint to our office from a citizen, a member of the public, will trigger some kind of investigation. So that may be a consumer complaint against, deceptive car dealership, a worker complaining about their wage and hour not being properly paid by their employer, somebody complaining about their landlord in certain ways, and that may trigger some kind of action that the Attorney General will then move on to the enforcement stage. Enforcement can happen in a lot of ways. Sometimes that's simply a fine. So if there is a large pattern of, or any kind of wage theft, right, if you're not getting paid your wages, we will notify that the investigators, after they find that out and they go through the pay logs and auditing all the transactions of the business, they will then fine the business and also get restitution for those workers. So that's one way enforcement might work. The AG is also involved in lawsuits at a bigger scale than more individual issues. And that may, like right now, it's publicly known that there is a lawsuit against Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook. Multi-states are involved in that suit, and that's because they knowingly created an algorithm that knowing that it was harmful and addictive, and hid that information, much like other kinds of companies that hide the data that they know the product is harmful. So that's an interesting place where enforcement happens. Then there's policy that we get involved in. We do not create policy. That's up to the legislative body in the state. But the work that the Attorney General does in uncovering practices might lead to some regulations or some policy in certain arenas. So, and then the prevention, that's me. That's why I'm here. We were talking about this before. If you know and you share what you know, then you're in a better position not only to prevent yourself from scams, but know how to deal with the landlord-tenant, know how to deal with a financial institution, know what your rights are under the law. So that's the place what brings us here today. As I mentioned, the Attorney General's main office is in Boston, but I'm from the Worcester region, as I mentioned, covers all of Central Mass and sort of the edges of Middlesex County, which is where we find ourselves today. Then there's a Springfield office, and then there's one in New Bedford. So a little bit about us. This is a bunch of words. The lawyers came up with this. Basically, this is saying that when we give these talks, we are not providing any kind of legal advice. As I mentioned, I'm not a lawyer, and by law, the Attorney General cannot advise an individual person. It's not like a law firm, right? So they cannot even refer you to a specific lawyer. They can make recommendations that you look through the referral service and get legal help. But this is all informational purposes. That's what this says. And that there may be other links within the training and within the materials that you may want to pick up when you leave that are to outside organizations like the Federal Trade FTC.gov and places like that, Federal Trade Commission, correct. So that's that. No need to spend a lot of time on that. Now let me get my glasses on so I can read here. What is financial exploitation? The improper or illegal use of an elder's financial resources through, but not limited to, deceit, coercion, or undue influence of the elder. Now some examples are listed below. If you can read, that's someone cashing your checks, someone forging your signature, someone misusing or stealing your money. That could even be, personal care type people that work with you, misuse of power of attorney duties, or wealth draining of elders by debt collectors. So when we rely on other people, obviously we're in a vulnerable position, so we are more subject in that way to potential abuse or exploitation. How to prevent it. So the top one, I don't know if you can see it, it says avoid isolation, stay active, and socialize with family and friends. Kudos to you all because you're here, right? So you are connected. You are part of a community. You are socializing. We can do a great service when we share the information that we learn with those who are not as connected because they may not be getting the same information. We talked a little bit about when I was first setting up just how things are evolving in the scam prevention world, right? They get craftier and trickier. So keeping connected with people, you'll hear about that, but also you will avoid the loneliness that happens that leaves us vulnerable to scammers and to people who want to prey on our need to connect. You pick up the phone if you're lonely, and you probably should not pick up the phone, which we will continue to talk about as this progresses. So the second one, it says monitor your financial transactions very closely. So that's checking your statements from your bank, from your credit cards, from any businesses that you work with, including medical billing, right? So staying on top of that. Ever since I started this job, I check that so much more religiously, just knowing what could happen and what people are sometimes falling prey to. Be aware of anyone who pressures you into making an immediate decision. So keep that in mind. That's the common theme here, that urgency, that you got to do this now. This is a great deal. We're here on your doorstep. Sign this contract. Just click buy, whatever it is. That urgency is the thing to really give you a red flag. Keep important legal and financial documents in a safe place. So we're talking, nobody needs to be walking around with their Social Security card or their even necessarily medical cards. You scan them in at the doctor's office that first visit, and you don't need to have them with you, certainly not a passport or anything like that. Keep those legal and financial documents in a safe place at home. It's really important advice. Screen your calls, which we'll continue to talk about as this progresses, this presentation. And the bottom there says, if it sounds too good to be true, most likely it is a scam. The process of scamming, what they're interested in is your money, of course, but they also want your personal information. That personal information can then be used to, steal your identity and then get more money. This is the little graphic you see here. So we have to be careful both of our financials and just our personal information in general. And the ID theft, we're going to continue to talk a little bit more about remedies and things like that. I do have a number of materials out on the table, as you probably saw when you came in. I was setting those up, and you're welcome to take that. There's a lot of these links and these things that we're referring to here. There's actual hard copy that you can keep with you for reference and to share. Rules to know. So we've taken that one that says if it's too good to be true, we've made it a golden rule, right? I almost feel like we should create a little repeat after me. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Chances are it's a scam. And you know what? Us elders, we're not the only ones falling victim to this, right? I have two daughters who are making their way out in the world post-college, looking at apartment ads and things like that. Cars, used cars on Facebook Marketplace. Oh, this is so great. This apartment is so much cheaper. I've been looking for days. This is great. I just have to send them a deposit right now. No. So it's very easy to think, oh, this is a deal that I just happened to be so lucky to find. It's probably, there could be a scam there. So there could be. I'm not saying for sure, but there very well could be. So that's the golden rule. Applies to us all. Some tips there, as you can see. Read the small print. That applies to any kind of contracts or even credit card agreements, or certainly somebody showing on your doorstep asking you to sign on for some work. Always guard your personal information, as we mentioned on the last slide. You know, both your physical cards and also beware of who you share online and email. And then research well before agreeing to anything. Taking that step back and avoiding that urgent, like, oh, I've got to take advantage of this deal right now. I've got to answer this call to action. Nope, you don't. You can take a beat, slow down, and research before you agree. Telemarketing and unwanted phone calls. Has anybody ever gotten? It goes without saying that we've all experienced these kinds of things. So sometimes somebody's trying to market something or get a donation or any other kind of interaction, but sometimes it's a potential scam. So has everybody heard of the grandparent scam? Yeah, I'm seeing everybody nod. So you may get a phone call from somebody very urgent that they have your grandchild there. They may even know their name, that they are in some kind of danger, and the only way they can get help, you're the only one they could reach, they need this money right away to help them get out of Mexican prison or to, you know, pay for the fine because they were in a car accident or any number of things. And getting savvy and savvier with technology, there's even a way that they could potentially have that voice recorded so it actually sounds like somebody you know. And that's also called an emergency scam, right? You have to react because this emergency right now, we need $40,000 right now to to take care of this person. One really good technique I heard shared in this sort of prevention world where I travel is for families to come up with a passphrase, right? So the family, maybe you have a safe phrase, right? Or so if somebody said, I have your daughter here, well, you could say, well, ask her what our phrase is. Grandma loves Yarmouth, in the summer. Whatever it is, some kind of family only they would know, a way to identify, well, okay, yeah, they said that they need their help. That probably the person would just hang up because it's usually a scam when you get this kind of a call. But it's good practice and a good preventive technique. So lottery scam is somebody calling or emailing you that you've won something. However, to get it, you have to pay shipping and extra charges and sign on to some other kind of agreement. There may even be something that you would actually get, but the scam is that they're trying to get your agreement and get your information and charge you a lot of money for that. This next topic is huge, the Medicare, government, IRS, and bank scams. They are very much preying on your fear, right? We rely so much on different programs. If you get a call or an email or a text that says it's the government and you're going to lose your program or something like that, it's a scam. Basically, I went to I just wanted to read this to you. I went to the Federal Trade Commission's site, and they have it there right on bold print. Government agencies will never call, email, text, or message you on social media to ask for money or your personal information. Only a scammer will do that. So we know, right? And if somebody does call from a bank, for instance, we do get calls from our bank sometimes. Oftentimes it would be about a specific transaction. Oh, we noticed you took out this big amount. Was that intentional or whatever it is? Even in that case, you could say thank you for the call, hang up, check your records, call the bank back at the number that you know from your statement or from public website, that's the accurate number. Call them back, say, a representative called me, I just want to find out if this is true and what I need to do. Do not react in the moment, even with that very legitimate sounding call, maybe the bank. definitely not the IRS. That's not how it will go. If you're going to get messaged by a government agency, they'll send you in writing. So that's really important to remember. Fake debt collectors are also very crafty. You get a call from somebody saying that you didn't pay a bill and that you owe this amount, and if you don't pay it, you will lose your insurance benefit or whatever possible bad thing that could happen. They will make you feel nervous about that. But with debt collection, you have the right to ask them for their address. If they are calling you and it's legitimate, you ask them for their name and their address and their phone number, and then within 5 days they are required to send you that notice in writing. So if it were a legitimate debt collection call, there's a process that happens. It's not like right away or you're going to lose everything. So again, that's slow down, think about it. Why is this person calling me? And again, you may already kind of know all this information, and I, again, so appreciate, I want to just say how much I appreciate you being here to we collectively pool our resources and share with other people. Robocalls is kind of constant in life now, right? Does everybody have a smartphone or some kind of, I have an iPhone myself. Does everybody here have some kind of smart device? So do you notice that you get a scam likely message on a lot of calls now? So I think the technology is trying to catch up and help us with this, which is great. But sometimes it's not always clear. And sometimes you're waiting for a call for somebody, like maybe a test result from a medical provider, or somebody you don't know what their number is. You're tempted to want to pick up that call. You can always just let it go to voicemail. And if you are waiting for a specific call, reach out to whomever that might be, your provider, and say, you know, I was waiting for some results. I noticed a call from sort of your area code. Was it you trying to reach me? So just that extra caution, that's so important. Now, robocalls, you probably notice that sense, right? Sometimes you pick up a phone call because you do think it looks familiar, and there's that pause. And then you hear a little click, yeah, and then you're like, whoop, we got a live one, right? So it's that sense that they're just not calling you specifically with your number. They're sitting at a computer going down a list. And it's really important not to pick up the phone unless you know who it is calling you, because as we said before, scammers are after not only your money, but your personal information. And you are a commodity in the scammer world. So the more you pick up the phone, the more you get listed on lists as a responsive phone number. That phone number can get shared and monetized and sold to other scammers, right? So we want to kind of drop off the radar and not pick up the phone. It's a hard habit to break,
well,
you know.
There's a do not call list too.
Yes, there is the National Do Not Call Registry, donotcall.gov, I think it is. And, you know, even despite adding, I don't know if you've still noticed calls coming in even after doing that. Yeah. So I'm not sure.
Not as many. Right.
Not as many. It cuts down, right. It cuts down. And also, you don't want to click on anything like just press this number or even say anything, because sometimes just clicking that number confirms you exist. And again, you're on that responsive phone, could lead to more calls. And then sometimes they'll ask you to say, is this so-and-so? And then you say, yes. Or have you repeat your name or something like that. It can be recorded, is what I've heard. I haven't personally heard of examples, maybe you have, but a scammer could take the recording of your voice with your name and you saying yes, and use that in some kind of nefarious way to pretend to be you, to do things, open credit cards or things like that. So, super important. Let's see, the next one we left off at, just hanging up the phone. We're at the top of the list. Hang up the phone. Do not send any cash, checks, gift cards, or wire any money. Has everybody heard of the gift card kind of scam, right? So you're being told the only way to solve a certain issue is to buy the gift cards, take the money, and then give some of the gift cards to this other person, and it's maddening. You get kind of roped into, and why would you do that? Because there's some urgency that's been presented to you. So really the golden rule, always slow down and do not react if there's any pressure being put on you. Let's see, never give out your personal information unless you initiated the call, right? So if you're calling your bank from the number on the back of the credit card and it sounds like them and they say, please verify your address, that's okay. But if they are claiming to be a debt collector, again, that's the demanding the verification of the debt in writing, which they are required to do. And then you can also make a note of the caller's number and the time and the date of call and report that to the Federal Trade Commission. The two numbers there, they should be on that scam prevention flyers that I have over there. One is 877-FTC-help and then ftc.gov/complaint. You could also go to ftc.gov/imposter and read more about the ways that these things are, because as you pointed out earlier, this is constantly adjusting and getting more and more savvy. You know, we're trying to be savvy. They're also more and more savvy. There's more and more tricks to trick you in an imposter situation. Okay. Spoofing. So a spoof is they're actually changing the number that's going to appear on your caller ID. So it looks different or expected in some way. It can occur on any type of phone, a landline or a cell phone, and they're used by scammers to impersonate somebody, either a government, whoops, didn't want to go yet, or the things that we talked about before, banks or schools, or even people that you know, family or friends. And okay, I guess that was the last one. And phishing and smishing. Are there any questions so far? We do questions at the end, but is there anything that comes up or any examples you want to share of your own experiences that come to mind, or things that you've heard other people have to deal with?
Well, I would just make a comment, the FTC
Uh-huh.
email or online.
Yep.
I had a situation and I talked to, the local Stowe police and the detective.
Oh, okay.
And he recommended I go in and report it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get through successfully to where I was supposed to,
To the
thought I was
complaint
going
form.
To do a complaint, right, yeah.
Oh, that's
and I just,
interesting.
tried a few times and just walked away from it.
So ftc.gov/complaint?
I can't, it was definitely FTC.
Because it's the last time I looked at it, I was impressed by how user friendly it was. Now,
Okay.
two things that sometimes happen is like the browser that you're using. Like if you're in
Right.
Safari versus Chrome or something. Some don't work as well with some websites. But I'm also curious. I would maybe even
I
if we
just
can.
got to it.
Did you just get to it? Do you see the user ability to enter information there?
It says report now. I didn't put that.
Right. I almost feel like we should do like a group click through just as a test and see, because
A
sometimes.
simple typo or an extra dot or something will mess that
And
up.
it could be, and the detective, I think, had verbally given me like an email address.
Oh, okay. So maybe you missed one of, or yeah.
Something, because I kind of got there and I
Yeah.
just never got to where I thought he
Oh.
was telling me I could submit,
Right. Oh, well, we should look through that together at the end, because that's a useful thing to do. And again, will you get any personal relief from that? No, but we're combining, our knowledge so that they can share the information, and then they can detect trends and maybe take some action. Sometimes they do take action against big scammers. So phishing is a type of an online scam that targets consumers by sending them an email that appears to be from a well-known source, an internet service provider, a bank, a mortgage company, for example, and it asks the consumer to provide personal identifying information. And smishing is that same technique, except it's using it through a text method. So you don't want to click on those things, because you can easily take yourself by clicking a link to, you can get some malware on your computer, or you could potentially, open an unsafe document, or get taken to a website that can then detect your information, because they know how to do these things. So you really want to pause and quickly, slowly take a break, pause, and think over, what's this messaging that's happening here? Why would I want to click on that? They are I can't stress this enough, how crafty they are. I got a couple, I wasn't going to say I got, between the last couple of months, I've gotten maybe 3 from money payment services that I do use, like PayPal and Venmo right? So we do use these things to, kids want to use them all the time, right? You send me some money via Venmo or help pay me for this. So it looks like I've ordered something, just to give you an example. Oh, you're subscribed to this service now, you're going to get billed $89.99 a month. I'm like, what did I?
You just bought a $500 iPhone or something?
Yeah, and sometimes you think like I was telling John before, I do have a recording studio, like I'm a musician, and I do have some things that I subscribe to and that I buy via, and so I had to go, oh, I don't want to lose that service. I was just about to click it, or even just to see what's the origin of it, what's this company, I don't know. If I click the email and it's fake, it could take me, to a place where they can, again, do something nefarious, like give malware on your computer or just have your information, which can get stolen. But if I, just kind of go in and look at PayPal, look at my interactions. In this case, there was nothing in there. There's no communication from this seller. And then I Google it, email from so-and-so about such and such. And sometimes you'll see like it's a known scam. Not always. Sometimes they're very individual. As I was saying earlier, sometimes even the return email address will look legitimate. And they will have the logo. And the return down at the bottom, it looks like it's from the company. But if you really scrutinize it, oftentimes you'll see one character off or just something a little bit that's not how their logo actually looks. It's faked in some way. So be super careful and not click on unknown emails, links, or links on your phone that you do not know. Let's see. And one other thing that I wanted to pass along, I wrote in my notes here, that I've heard from other folks who've been doing this longer than I have, that if you are using a online way to pay things and you enter, it's better to use a credit card than your bank, than to have it taken right out of your bank. For some reason, the credit cards have more protections against fraud kind of built in. Whereas sometimes if you have your bank card linked, depending on their terms, they could say, well, you agreed to that because you clicked that and you agreed to that money being taken out of your bank. And because of that, you don't have access to the fraud protection as well at the bank. And again, I'm not an expert on that, but I'm passing that along because I've actually gone back and changed my payment methods in a number of cases, just because I wanted to have that extra level of protection from a credit card. Let's see, beware of fake checks. Could start with somebody offering to buy something that you advertised. Payment for work at home. Have people heard of that?
I get a million calls for that.
Oh, do you want to share
And
what?
they're all on WhatsApp for some reason.
WhatsApp. That's
Which is, mostly I think of for international usage.
It's very highly used in other
But I'm
countries.
like,
That's right.
why?
So that's a good red flag if somebody's saying this has to be done on
Right.
WhatsApp. Yeah.
Right.
Right, and there's all kinds of ways that you can get tricked. Again, I've seen my daughters looking like, oh, work from home. Look at how much they would pay
Right,
me.
exactly.
You
The
have to
money
buy
is
the computer.
extraordinary.
Yeah,
And they can't really tell you exactly what you'd be doing. Right?
yeah. They're very crafty, and you have to be extremely suspicious in these situations. And you should never be in a situation where somebody is giving you a check for more than you agreed upon, and then you have to send them some money back or send money to another person. There's just like changing the way it gets distributed, and or giving you an advance on a foreign or domestic sweepstakes. Again, that's the lottery thing. So those could be fake checks. What else did I have in the notes here? Yeah, so people can, like if you did put something online, like on a Facebook marketplace or something that you advertise that you're selling, you could get a fake check in that kind of a situation. Let's see. Yeah. Or they're in another country and they really want that item. They're not going to be coming there till next week. Can they send you some money in advance? Sounds like a good deal. All right, I've sold my item. I have it. But then you're at risk. You put yourself at risk. So it's need to be aware. Fake checks. You don't have to wait long to use the money, but that doesn't mean the check is good. You are responsible for the checks you deposit, and there is no legitimate reason for someone who is giving you money to ask you to wire money back. So these are all really good reminders. One thing I've done, I forgot to mention this earlier, in the past at talks like this, is I can send a PDF of this very presentation to the person who reached out for me to do this presentation today. I believe her name is Jane. And that way, if you want it, you can have it. So just all of these little reminders. The information here on the table is also very good, but it's nice to have that. What was that reminder again? Oh yes, you are responsible for the checks you deposit. So sometimes, right away, the bank is kind of required to make the funds available to you, even before it clears. So you may think, oh, this check was good. Look, I got money in my account. And go spend it. And then when it turns out to be a fraud, you can't get that money back. So be super aware of and careful of that. Unsolicited mail. If you believe you are a victim of fraud related to the U.S. mail, you need to report it to the U.S. Postal Inspectors. That link is also on the Savvy Senior flyer over here. You can contact the Direct Marketing Association. It's similar to the do not call function of the government, where you can have your name removed from these lists for all of the unsolicited mail that you may be getting. And you can also go to optoutprescreen.com to opt out of any of those credit card offers, which can just make you more vulnerable with all of that, with your name on it and those applications coming into the mail. Shredding your mail is really important too, like destroying your information on these credit card applications before you dispose of it. Unsolicited email. So do not provide your email address on unknown websites. Do not respond to emails where you cannot verify the sender, and do not click the links provided in the email. And you could go to unsubscribe at the bottom of the email if it's a legitimate company that you just don't want to have any business with. And then you could file a complaint with the ic3.gov, which is the Crime Complaint Center at the FBI. And staying safe online, how to protect yourself. Know who you are dealing with when releasing your personal information. Installing an antivirus software on your computer is a way to stay safe, so you can't get malware put right onto your computer. Be careful not to release too much information on social media, because thieves may use such information. So we were saying before about posting about a vacation, and sometimes that's how they can know that your grandchild is in such and such place, because it was posted. So you really want to be careful about the private things you put on social media like that. Creating strong passwords and changing them on a regular basis. I don't know, we were talking about the iPhone before, but they have that option of doing a passkey, which is just having your face be the passcode. So there's nobody else could do that. That's what that means, the passkey. Yes, yes. So instead of having to save even a strong password, some information that I've heard is that the safest technology is the passkey. And so I've just gone through and allowed that in all my online logins. And sometimes I have to say, which glasses am I wearing today? It doesn't recognize me. It's a few different times. But it is a very strong protection. And then shredding, as we just mentioned, shredding all your personal documentation. Let's see, where are we next? So these are ways to report your scams. The Federal Trade Commission by phone is there. Again, you can take a handout with all this information on it, or request a copy of this afterwards. Mail scams can get reported to again, like we said, Postal Inspection Service, and then the internet scams to ic3.gov. It's important to report because, as we said, it's the information that gets shared. If you do that in a timely way, they can identify trends and hopefully stop the bad guys. So charity scams is another thing to be on the lookout for. Some organizations will pose as charities to scam people out of our money. It's, again, preying on your emotion, your sense that you want to be a good citizen and be helper. They can often be very high pressure for you to do it quickly. And sometimes they will craftily change the name of the organization to something that sounds familiar that you've already maybe been a donor to. So be aware of that. Did I miss one? No, that was right. Sorry about that. Charity scams, what should you do? Make sure the charity is registered. You can check by the Attorney General's Public Charities website for their annual filings. And do not rush, again, taking a pause and find out exactly what the charity is and where it's going. And do not give your credit card number or your bank account information over the phone. Identity theft. So checking credit reports and all your accounts. You can sign up for ways to do that. Does anybody have any credit reporting software that they use or subscription? Right, so you can sign up to get, I think you're entitled to a free credit report every year too, yeah.
Well, the only reason I haven't is because there are so many data breaches that have exposed my data.
Right.
Is there any penalties for them not, for various organizations to not provide enough security that they get data breach? Because I've gotten at least 4 times.
Yeah, I just got one yesterday from Ticketmaster.
So is anyone looking at that? I realize it's probably not a law, but maybe it should be, because they're the ones exposing my information, not me.
Right, right.
And there's nothing I can do.
I'm not sure about that. I'll have to ask my colleagues what the penalty would be. I do know that they are required to send that notification, and that may be
not much help,
yeah.
really, once they've let the horse out of the barn.
Right.
AT&T just sent one out the other day for 2000, between 2000 and 2020, no, 20 and 22. It's like, that was 2 years ago. I guess the regulations out there.
Right.
Oh, wow, that's very interesting.
But I mean,
yeah.
It's great to be careful of ourselves, but there are other organizations exposing our data all the time.
Right.
And they don't seem to have any, there doesn't seem to be any deterrent, you know?
Right, for there needing to be a certain level of security or some kind of prevention
some of them will
method.
actually go give you an identity theft software, but if something happens, the horse is out of the barn, you know?
Right, I mean, the thing is, you know, so if your information's out there and, you know, you want to take all of the precautions that they advise, then that's going to be like, you're freezing your credit, right?
Right.
Which is probably, unless you're in the market for a new house or a new car or something, that might be a good idea to
I hear unfreezing
to
is
just-
very difficult, though.
unfreezing it.
Yeah.
What have you heard about that? Because I'll
Just that's
find
all
out.
I've heard,
I'll
is
have
that
to.
it's difficult to unfreeze.
Huh.
I don't know if that's
Yeah.
true, but
Yeah.
someone mentioned that to me.
Right.
But still, I just think there should be penalties for not protecting the information.
So I guess you kind of have to weigh, like if you're not in need of like opening up new credit cards or buying a house, or you might not need to access your credit as
Right.
much. So it may be, you know, you weigh the protection of freezing it. I don't know about the process of unfreezing it, but I have heard that kind of through the grapevine too, that you may be.
Right. And it isn't just about credit, like your social security number
Right.
could have been part of a breach. And,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
freezing it won't necessarily help you in some ways that
But there's also like credit monitoring, right? So that you'll see any kind of attempts. Yeah. So.
But once a year isn't enough to check that unless you already
Yeah.
have a program.
Yeah. So signing up with those programs is probably a good idea. They usually offer what, a 3-month?
Sometimes it's a year.
It's a year or something. Okay. Yeah. It's probably a good idea to do that. But I will pass along your input about the and the question, because I do not know like if there's any other kinds of deterring fines. Yeah.
Right, right.
I was just going to add,
yeah.
I think it's state specific. I think
Okay.
like California has very, very strict rules about breaches.
Oh, that's
Well, and
interesting.
it
30 days to
too. It's
notify
very
people.
pro-consumer, right.
They have to do it within a certain,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
certain amount of
specific,
time.
right.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
depending on the research or the background to what caused it, which is maybe where an attorney general's office gets involved or whatever to find out what caused the breach.
Right.
There would be penalties and fines, but it could be years down the road.
Right.
Or, you know.
Exactly.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, the ones that, you know, have send you a letter and say, oh, we breached your data, sorry, you know, be more careful. And
Oops.
you're like, what?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like, is that it? You-
Yeah. That does feel
So you
frustrating.
know,
Totally legitimate.
Massachusetts Attorney General's office has, you know, if they're aware of a breach of a company based in Massachusetts, what their requirements are.
Yeah, that would be interesting to
Yeah, I mean, I know they are required to notify, but I don't know what the time limit is for, if it's that aggressive, right? You're saying
Well,
like
and
30
also
days of becoming aware of it, you have to notify the,
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean they fix it in a secure
No,
way either. But,
right. Yeah, that was a
not in
concern.
skeptical, but-
Yeah. Awesome questions. I will go back and find some. In fact, I can keep in touch with Jane when I send her this copy and let her know what I find out, you know. I think we went through all of this. Yes, shredding the documents with your personal information. So identity theft. So yeah, so if it does happen where you realize that your identity has been stolen, then you have to follow those steps of repair, which is outlined in the Savvy Senior flyer there. So there's several. You have to do the complaint to the Federal Trade Commission, and then an ID theft report, and also a police report. So there's multi-levels of authority. It's online at the ftc.gov to do that, the affidavit or that complaint for the identity theft report. And then you show that report that you get from the FTC to the police officer. You file a police report and show the officer the identity theft affidavit that you got from FTC, and that creates an identity theft report. Those multi-authorities both have to be notified. And then you can represent that ID theft report to creditors to illustrate that you've been a victim of ID theft, and this may help you correct fraudulent information on your accounts. So it's kind of the first step of the tools that you have to combat it once that happens. And then this is calling the credit bureaus that we were talking about, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, to create a fraud alert and then a security freeze, and then asking for the free credit report. So kind of a summary of all the steps we were alluding to here. Let's see. Yes, kind of a summary of all of the steps that are. I believe, you know what? I want to just take a look at this little booklet that we have here, which you're welcome to take. I put these all out here for you guys. How to avoid financial scams. And it does take you through a lot of the steps and a lot of more in-depth about the things that we're talking about here. And I just wanted to see, it's also got all the tip lines and the reporting lines at the end through the Attorney General, those tip lines. And just looking to see if it has, yes, all of the contact info that they're talking about here is in this under the identity theft portion. So alerting your creditors, then letting everybody know that the credit cards in the banks, retirement investment accounts that you deal with, and your cable, internet, and phone providers, letting them all know that you've experienced that. And then you want to close any accounts, of course, that may have been affected by that theft. And let's see. Yep, that's the full list of the things you want to. And then there's medical identity theft, which you want to keep an eye out. Again, checking all of your statements all the time and noticing if you get a bill for services that you didn't receive, or a call from a debt collector for a debt that you don't owe, medical collection notices on your credit report that are not yours, or a denial of insurance for a service that you should be able to be covered for and receive. So those are all ways to see a sign of being a victim.
How's the last one identity theft?
What's that?
How is the last bullet item an identity theft?
Well, if your identity has been stolen, medical identity, and now you are no longer maybe like you use up your benefit or something like that because somebody else has been.
You only get one of something.
Yeah, that would just be a sign that, oh, like, why is that? You know, that would, like, why am I getting denied this? Maybe someone else is utilizing my identity. So yeah, good question. How to protect yourself, guard your insurance card numbers carefully. Remember we talked about just not even having them with you. Bring them to the office that first visit. They scan them into the system. You do not need to have them. But also, you know, not entering them onto any forms that you're not aware of. Don't share medical or insurance information by phone or email unless you initiated the contact and you know who you're dealing with. Proactively request and review an annual listing of all the benefits paid by your insurer. You can do that with your insurance company. And review your medical records and report any errors that you see. And remove personal information from all pill containers before disposing. So if you throw them into the trash, you can take that tag off. That is your medical information on there. And that's the end. We do have our phone numbers for reaching us, which again are on all the materials that I have. I also have my own card. You're welcome to reach out and email me if you had any specific questions or if there's any other resources I could point you to. And thank you very much. Any other questions or experiences that you would like to share with the group? Would everybody like some copies of the materials that we have here?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, let me just hand them out. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, you can just take a look at them. You don't have